Stop me if you've heard this before. The Nintendo Switch 2 has done the impossible. Well, they kind of have again, because they've got record-breaking sales numbers that we're going to be talking about here. Nintendo has detailed everything on their official investors reports. Now, there are a ton of different things that we can talk about here when it comes to individual sales and data and all sorts of stuff. But what I want to go over are the major things and how it impacts you as the gamer, not just the sales numbers to be boring sales numbers to say, oh my gosh, look at how much this sold, they're making so much money. That's something that's fine. It's fine. It is what it is when it comes down to that. What I'm interested in is the actual numbers and what it pertains to the games itself, what it pertains to what we're going to get, and the in-depth analysis on what's going to happen because of said things. So we're going to detail all of that and what it means when it comes to the overall scope and landscape, because believe it or not, guys, the numbers that we're going to go over here are incredibly good and a positive sign. You like the fact that we're getting Nintendo Switch 2 games at a good pace, especially from third party? Well, these sales numbers justify everything and will continue to motivate developers to put their best on the Nintendo Switch 2. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. Let's start off with the Nintendo Switch 2 hardware sales. The Switch 2 has officially sold 23.68 million units as of June 30th, 2026. And I'll be honest, that was significantly higher than what I thought it was going to be. I do think that there was a rush of people buying Pokemon Pocopi and other games that helped boosted the Switch 2 sales on top of the Japanese sales, because that system, it got the price increase by the end of May, and this quarter that we're going to, it's as of the end of June 30th. So it counts April, May, and June for the financial quarter. And May, that was when the price increase hit, the end of May for Japan. So there was a big boost there. But even if you count that big boost, there was still some pretty decent numbers around the world for the Nintendo Switch 2, because the Switch 2 sold 3.82 million units in that last quarter. That's really good. That's up about a million plus or so from the previous quarter. And if you compare it to any other system on the market, the second best-selling system when it comes to dedicated consoles was the PlayStation 5. That sold about 1.6 million, so it sold over 2 million units plus above the next place. So not bad for a quarter. And Nintendo also had a 150% increase in profits due to the $300 million tariff refund that they got. Now, Sony also got a $500 million refund, and many other companies even got way more than that. Like Apple, I think, got like 2 billion plus or something. So a lot of companies got their money back because those tariffs were deemed illegal and they should have never happened in the first place. It just caused more issues than it helped. But either way, a lot of companies got their refunds back, and no, you're not going to get anything. So pretty good. 23.68 million units. The Nintendo Switch 2 is officially the fastest selling console of all time in just about 1 year, a little bit over that. The next fastest selling systems are the PlayStation 2 at 19 million, the Nintendo Switch 1 at 15 million, the PlayStation 4 at 13 million, and the Nintendo Wii at 11 million. Why do console sales matter? Well, it's because now that developers see that the Switch 2 is continuing to sell at a very high pace, they're going to continue to put resources into porting over games to the Nintendo Switch 2. So let me give you guys an example before we get into some of these other sales numbers. If you look at the Nintendo Switch 2 third-party offerings, it absolutely demolishes what they've done in the past. Nintendo usually gives a snippet of third-party games coming out on the systems, and I remember them doing that for the Nintendo Switch 1, and there'd be a few games here and there. It'd be like, okay, there's some games, but there are so many third-party titles that have been released or releasing in the future, they needed 2 separate slides this time. I mean, there's just a bunch of stuff from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, Metaphor Refantasio, Resident Evil Veronica, Madden, Elden Ring, The Dustbloods, Orbitals, Ninjala 2, 007 First Light, Miramasa the Demon Blade, Metal Gear Solid, Professor Layton, Danganronpa, Final Fantasy. It just goes on and on. Dragon Quest Monsters, Wo Long, Rayman Retold, Atelier Korea. I mean, they have a lot of games here, and it's not even everything. There are definitely missing third-party games here and there. I don't think there's Onimusha maybe I missed that on this list. You got Dragon's Dogma, Onimusha, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, also Versus is coming. I mean, there's just a ton of games here. So that's what this means. If you're wondering what those sales numbers mean, this is what you get. You get more third-party developers putting in resources, putting in effort to get those games. If the system was not selling what it's selling, trust me, you wouldn't see Dragon's Dogma on the system. You wouldn't see Onimusha on the system. You wouldn't see Grand Blue Fantasy on the system. You wouldn't see Lies of P, which just recently released. It's also on here as well. You wouldn't see that on the system. You wouldn't see Final Fantasy. You wouldn't see 007. You wouldn't see all this stuff if there wasn't that continuation from the great sales of the Switch 1, the boosted specs of the Switch 2, and knowing that there's going to be a lot of people at a consistent clip, millions upon millions each quarter, picking up the Switch 2 and buying games. So that's what it translates out to. That's why it's important, and that's why fans should just have their eye on it, because when we don't get stuff like the Wii U, for example, that's what happens. It's because the sales are pretty bad, or the sales are stagnant or not good enough for the investment. So that's what this does at the end of the day. So I do want to go over some more sales updates here. We've got Nintendo Switch 2 software. We will get into Switch 1 because that passed a big milestone too. But let's get into Nintendo Switch 2 software sales update. So from the bottom to the top, you got Super Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 Edition at 1.15 million, Kirby Air Riders at 1.9 million, Pokemon Pocopia at 3.68 million, Pokemon Legends ZA Nintendo Switch 2 Edition at 3.99 million. Keep in mind what Pokemon Pocopia's number is, that number is actually probably over 5 million units, but Nintendo doesn't count the sales in Japan just because they aren't the publisher. The Pokemon company is, so Nintendo only puts the games that they publish. So right here, you're just seeing the Western sales for Pokemon Pocopia. According to Joe Merrick over on Twitter, who has the beat for all this big Pokemon dude, he says that it's probably over 5 million units based off of the sales numbers and sales tracking that we do have so far. But yeah, Pokemon Pocopia, it's going to be reported right here at 3 million plus, but it's really more like 5 million because they aren't counting those Japanese numbers. Donkey Kong Bonanza at 4.78 million and Mario Kart World at 15.39 million. So a lot of games selling here across the Nintendo Switch 2 and the Switch 1. It's always interesting to see how they do the Switch 2 editions because of how it's counted. The Switch 2 edition upgrades aren't counting as Switch 2 versions, and then only Switch 2 versions counting if you buy the actual full cartridge compared to the upgrade. So it's just kind of weird with Switch 2 editions compared to how Nintendo counted software with the Nintendo Switch 1. But even with that, really good sales here across the board. Mario Kart World is continuing to kill it. That does include digital sales and the bundled sales, so keep that in mind. Donkey Kong Bonanza continuing to sell steadily as well. Pokemon Pocopia also selling steadily. Kirby Air Riders getting to 1.9 million. That is significantly better than what Kirby Air Rider did on the Nintendo GameCube. And Super Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 Edition, people are picking that up. That's probably incredibly profitable for Nintendo, people buying that full cartridge version of that game. Now, I do want to get into some other sales figures here that were interesting, and I'm pretty sure you guys want to talk about too when it comes to newer titles like Star Fox and Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. So Tomodachi Life, living the dream first though. This game is selling like mega units. It is sold over 8 million units according to Nintendo. So Tomodachi Life putting in some incredible sales numbers. When it comes to Star Fox and Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, Nintendo has officially stated, despite them not selling 1 million units on the record books just yet, they have stated that Yoshi and the Mysterious Book and Star Fox have performed steadily. So with Star Fox, we only got about 5 days of sales numbers. So if it's performing pretty steadily, and I'm looking at it on the eShop and on Amazon, it's still charting pretty good. Number 10 on the eShop, still a top seller on Amazon. I do think that it's going to take about another quarter and you will see it at the million units plus. Also, same thing goes for Yoshi. Probably a little bit slower with that game considering all the games that have came out. A lot of content coming out, a lot of big third-party games that are out. So the money is split a little bit more now than compared to like what the Switch 1 was going through. But I do think that Yoshi's probably going to do well, ultimately getting to 1 million units plus too. I think both these will sell steadily across the year as more people pick up their Nintendo Switch 2 systems and kind of have access now to these Switch 2 exclusives. Now let's talk about what's going on here with the next games that are coming out. We've got first-party titles that are coming. We'll get into Nintendo Switch 1 and also a huge milestone for the Nintendo Switch 2 to kind of weave back into. So first-party games, we still got Pokemon Pocopia, the expansion pass. That just launched recently as of the time that I'm recording this video. There's going to be part 2 in late 2026 and part 3 in early 2027. That expansion pass and the update is actually really good. Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave coming out September 17th, 2026. I am looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a game of the year candidate for me at least. And we'll see how it does reviews wise. Might be able to sneak in there for the Game Awards to lose to GTA. Next up is Nintendo Switch Sports Resort on October 22nd, 2026. I think that's also going to be a good game. That can be a system seller type of game. Got a lot of people who bought that on Nintendo Switch 1. Nintendo Switch Sports on the Switch 1 sold over 18 million units. It was a silent system seller for many years for the Switch 1, so I definitely see people seeing that holiday saying, okay, I'll pick that up for my kids or I'll pick that up for family nights. So I think that's going to be a really crucial title in the long run game for Nintendo and the Switch 2. Next up is the big one for the holiday, and that's The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It's still set, reconfirmed for 2026. I do believe that we are going to get the first real footage and everything of the game probably in September. Last year with the Mario 40th anniversary, that was September. A lot of the big times they do anniversaries or do big games or do big directs, it's September. So I fully expect that to be a September type of reveal and maybe a 40th anniversary Zelda presentation or even a big Nintendo Direct, and the 40th anniversary of Zelda is jammed into it in some way like they've done before when it comes to Mario last year. So I expect that to be coming, and I think it's going to look and play incredible. I can't wait for that. That's the big holiday game. A lot of people talk about it going head-to-head against GTA, and I'm just like, I don't care. I want to have some games for the Switch 2, and if there's a game that you can put out there, Zelda Ocarina of Time, one of the greatest rated of all time, people are going to be excited to play this. I do believe that it's going to do well, even with GTA right there. Okay, 2027, got a couple other big games coming out. Another game, that's probably my most anticipated game for 2027, and that's Xenoblade Genesis. The new beginning, the new start, a fresh plate for people to get into. I believe, I am willing into existence that Xenoblade has its breakout title here with well over 3 to 4 million plus units sold, lifetime when it's all said and done, because it's a new beginning, it's high quality, they're going to have everything down pat, they're going to have a combat system that people are going to love, and like I said, it's copium, but I'm still just trying to will that into existence. Let's go. Xenoblade Genesis 2027, and Pokemon Winds and Waves. This is going to be a massive game and a huge system seller, quite possibly the biggest system seller that we've had on the Nintendo Switch 2 in quite some time. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ocarina of Time is going to be huge. We've had Mario Kart World, we have Donkey Kong Bonanza, we have Nintendo Switch Sports Resort, but if there's one game that can really move a litany of systems, a massive amount in a short amount of time, it's Pokemon, and mainline 2 version Pokemon. And that's what this is, with significantly better graphics and everything. So I fully believe that Pokemon Winds and Waves is going to be huge for Switch 2 in 2027. The boosted specs of the Switch 2 are going to pay dividends for games like Ocarina of Time Remake, Xenoblade Genesis, Pokemon, Fire Emblem. Heck, even Nintendo Switch Sports Resort can benefit from it. That water is looking good in the jet skiing portions. And Pokemon Pocopia, 60 FPS. Dragon Quest Builders 2 ran at like 17 FPS at times on Switch 1. So I do think that all of that is using what the Switch 2 has for better experiences out there. Okay, let's get into Nintendo Switch 1 software update. We've got a big one here with different games. It's pretty much the same top 10. It hasn't really moved when it comes to any new games coming into the top 10, just because everything continues to sell very gradually. So I'll start from the bottom here. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe at 19.10 million. Number 9, Super Mario Party at 21.36 million. Number 8, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at 22.71 million. Number 7, Pokemon Sword and Shield at 27.26 million. Number 6, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet at 28.46 million. Number 5, Super Mario Odyssey at 30.80 million. That is wild. Big love to Super Mario Odyssey. Number 4, Zelda Breath of the Wild at 34.06 million, so the 34 million mark there for Zelda. Number 3, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 38.14 million. That game continues to sell incredibly well. And number 2, probably the most shocking thing out of all of these games, if you were to predict sales, would be this one, because Animal Crossing New Horizons has now hit 50.29 million, a 50 piece. That is just incredibly hard to do. Most games obviously don't sell anywhere near as much as any of these games listed here, but to sell 50 million units is just wild. And the game came out in 2020. It's not like the game's been out for like 10 years or something like that. It's been out for about 6 years at this point, and it sold over 50 million units. Congratulations to the Animal Crossing team. I'm pretty sure they're ecstatic with that number. And in at number 1 is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the game that's going to continue selling right alongside the Nintendo Switch 2, and even Switch 1 buyers still picking that game up with 71.53 million. The Nintendo Switch 1 has officially hit 156.59 million units in overall sales, with 1.561 billion pieces of software sold. And I'll just say this, I won't say too much, but I'll say this. If we didn't have people changing sales numbers on the way out of the door, the Nintendo Switch 1 would be the best-selling system of all time. If it wasn't so flaky, it's 155 million. Oh no, it's 158 or 159 million. Oh no, now it's 160 million. I'm just saying, I still acknowledge it. It's still behind the PlayStation 2, and it's going to be hard to get there because it's winding down when it comes to support here, and it's winding down with everything. Who knows how much longer they're going to be producing it. They did shut down the production in Europe because of the new law that makes them change the battery, so they just said, you know what, we're not going to sell it anymore. So it might be tough to catch it, but at the same time, selling 156 million units is absolutely crazy. So shout out to the Switch 1, one of the GOATs out there. Okay, and for the last thing that we're going to talk about here, the Nintendo Switch 2 has passed a super big milestone, and it's officially passed the Nintendo GameCube in overall sales. It actually blazed past it very quickly. In about a year it took to get past the GameCube, and it might have been less than that considering they were at 19.8 million by the end of March, and they needed 21.74 million, and it sold really good in April and everything. So I'm guessing that it blazed past that GameCube well before the end of June. But now we have the numbers: 23.68 million, Nintendo GameCube at 21.74 million. Next up is the Nintendo 64 at 32.93 million. The Switch 2 does have a chance to catch the Nintendo 64 this year, so I absolutely think that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to beat out the Nintendo 64 by the end of the year. You've got fantastic games coming out like Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, Splatoon Raiders is continuing to do great, Nintendo Switch Sports Resort, Ocarina of Time, plus all of the games that came out last year that are continuing to sell and be evergreen titles like Donkey Kong Bonanza, Mario Kart World, Pokemon Pocopia, Pokemon Legends ZA, and more. Plus all the Nintendo Switch 2 editions, all of the updates. There's just a ton of third-party games. There's a lot going for the system right now. Now, you do have that impending price increase, which I do think is going to be a double-edged sword. Of course, people are going to rush out there and buy the system because they want to get it before the price increase, but then you might get a sales dip after the price increase. However, it was positioned very smartly because I do think that it's going to head right into the hype for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. So people who don't pick up the system are going to be like, well, Ocarina of Time is coming out, and they're going to see Ocarina probably in September, so it's going to be worth the extra price if they even decided to not get it beforehand. So I think it was a very sharp and I would say pointed move by Nintendo to put that price increase right there when they know they're going to have big system selling type of games like Fire Emblem, Nintendo Switch Sports Resort, and Ocarina of Time to show off and display what the system can do for people who haven't bought it yet. And of course, all the third-party support coming. I think the system's going to do really well. I can see the sales continuing on even to next year. You've got big stuff like Pokemon Pocopia. The sales numbers and everything tracked here so far with software and hardware has been really good. Nintendo's up quite a bit, but we'll see how things kind of play out as we get more of the big games that are set to release here in 2025 and into 2027, as I'm sure there's going to be a lot of big titles and reveals at an upcoming Nintendo Direct. But all right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.